We are still seeing the election results trickle in, but in the meantime, it seems that that blue wave that we're expecting in Congress did not happen. Does this have implications for trade policy, given that foreign policy and trade policy or tariffs are more within the purview of the president? And what can we expect if we actually do get a Biden presidency?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me with you. And as a former trade representative, I might be the only one to look at the outcome of this election this way. But one, I am thrilled that Joe Biden is on a reasonably certain path to become the next president of the United States, and give even more confident that no matter what path Biden takes directionally in terms of foreign affairs, we'll at least engage with our traditional allies, as you mentioned in the piece running up to this. We will engage in those forums where we should lead, whether it's the Paris Accords, the World Trade Organizations, the United Nations, and others. But frankly, I think having a Congress in which a divided Congress is one in which Democrats and Republicans will have to come together on something as important as trade. And that might be one of the few places they can find commonality.
In that sense, would a Biden presidency make it easier to find a united front? We have heard from Vice President Biden saying that he will govern as an American, that the presidency is not partisan. If that's the case, what would trade policy look like with Republicans on board, especially against China?
Well, you know, I think it's Sherry. I can't see you speaking. You know, I think it's very easy to sort of analyze the U.S. trade policy over the last 4 years through the very failed lens that I think President Trump brought to the table. But the most animating force in terms of U.S.-China relations for the next several years is President Xi. I very much disagreed with the tactical approach that President Trump took, but there is widespread unanimity, I think, among the American Congress and the American people, that they feel that China has to be held accountable for its trade policies, in which it is much more receptive to exporting to other countries while it closes its market, engages in non-competitive behavior, continues to favor state-owned enterprises, and seeks to acquire foreign technology and trade secrets at any cost. So I think you'll substantively not see much difference there. I think the big difference is under an Obama under a Biden-Harris administration, President-elect Biden will very quickly try to build a coalition of other trading partners that likewise agree that we need a new approach with China.
Ambassador, I want to leave trade for a moment and get your views on the events of the last 24 hours. This as we see the former Vice President Biden nearing 270 electoral college votes. Of course, a number of the key states are still up for grabs and being counted. As a public official who has successfully seen re-election, the Democrats wouldn't have thought that this was going to be this close, right? What went wrong in the campaign?
Well, first of all, I always start with what went right. I mean, it's pretty hard to have much of a celebration when you're sitting there saying, oh, we missed that shot in the third quarter. Look, at the end of the day, the number one objective for Democrats in this country was to get Donald Trump out of the White House. Look, Donald Trump is not the source of all the division in our country. We have been a increasingly deeply divided country on a partisan level going back several years now. But we've never been that divided a country with someone in the White House who had absolutely no interest in bringing our country or trying to heal our division. So job number one was to get Donald Trump out of the White House. That we accomplished. On your other point, one of these days, my prayer, as what I define myself as more of a raging pragmatist, is my party will someday embrace the wisdom of under-promising and over-performing because I think we got a little too carried away with some of the public polls. And frankly, because the passion around this election was so driven because of the animus towards Donald Trump and his own personality, that was a little bit to restrain. But at the end of the day, this is a very good night for the Democratic Party, but it's an even more important night for our country that's made a fairly emphatic statement that we'd like to return to a period of civility and maturity and a lot more dignity in the White House.
Are you worried, though, about policy paralysis and gridlock in the Senate, given that one of the biggest disappointments of the night is, I think, the underperformance of the Democrats, despite the key focus being on campaigning for those Senate seats?
Well, you know, we are, but Sherry, I don't know if that's Sherry or Heidi. I mean, we've had gridlock, frankly, in the Senate ever since Mitch McConnell became majority leader and uttered those infamous words when Barack Obama was president, that his job wasn't to move the country forward. It was to stop whatever the Democrats wanted to do. So a lot of that gridlock could be solved if Mitch McConnell would soften his tone and realize that particularly, no matter who wins the presidency, and I am 100% convinced at this stage that it will be Vice President Biden, we are dealing with this global pandemic with an economic downturn that's affected trade flows, supply chains, economies all around the world. Job number one is going to be to get control of this pandemic. We can't do that with the divided Congress looking out more for their political interests and not the health and economic welfare of the American public. One thing that does give me a little bit of encouragement, Joe Biden is a creature of the United States Senate. He has spent his life in public service, the majority of that in the Senate. And while they are fierce partisans in their own ideological ways, he and Mitch McConnell both are stewards of that institution.
Right.
And so I would leave ourselves some room to be surprised to see if Joe Biden and Mitch McConnell can't find a way to at least move forward on a stimulus package and a way to address this pandemic.
Ambassador, but even before getting to that stage, how important is it that we overcome the divisions already, that we're seeing these whispers of recounts and legal challenges? How much more difficult will policymaking be if this drags on?
Well, you know, we've had, Sherry, I don't like that. You know, we have an old saying in this country that, you know, legislation is like making sausage. It's much better once it's cooked and on the dinner table. You shouldn't see it being made. Look, Joe Biden has said one thing, and I think most Democrats agree. We're not afraid of a recount. It is certainly within Donald Trump's rights to insist that the integrity of this election be held up, that the votes be recounted. But the reality for the votes that are outstanding, they are solidly in areas where Joe Biden has a strong lead, and we don't fear a recount. And if it takes a little bit longer to get it right, so be it. We went through this with the election between Al Gore and then Governor Bush. We've been through it before. We'll survive. But at the end of the day, Joe Biden is going to be the next president of the United States. And I know that his number one objective and concern will be getting control of this pandemic. And then we'll get to the more challenging issue of getting our economy back together. And along with that, restoring our very much needed international partnerships, whether it's on the trade front, whether it relates to climate change, our cybersecurity, our strategic security. Joe Biden's well positioned to do that.